So my dad was an amazing cook. In fact, when I sit down or when I get in the kitchen, the things that I cook, I'm trying to recreate the things that he made. The dishes that he made, the way he cooked it. When I sit and I talk, or when I go to New York and I talk to my brothers and sisters, there are these things that he used to do that we try to create. We haven't quite made it yet. But my choices about what I eat and how I eat, in a large part, comes from the things that he cooked. But not just him, but my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather and all the people that raised me. And so whenever we think about food, whenever we think about the things that we like, it all comes from our experiences. And tonight we're going to talk about taste. We're going to talk about how that influences our health and the choices that we make as we work on New Year, New You, y'all. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life. Avoid complications and go to the next level, creating the life you've always wanted. And in this year, New Year, New You. If you're new to me as well, go ahead and put new in the comments because we'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. Like we do here on the channel. And then make sure you put a Q in front of your questions if you have questions as we go throughout the night. We have been working in this year on how do we put diabetes in remission? How do we reverse diabetes? How do we get off of some of those diabetes medications? And we've been talking here as we've been going through about our model, right? That is our HEAT model, the model that we've been using for the things that can interrupt us, the things that can push us in one direction or the other as we are trying to make healthy decisions. And that's what we're going to spend some time talking about, that last component of the HEAT model, that is taste. And right now, I just want to say hi to, I see Teresa is out there. Here, Teresa, she says, evening, Dr. Wood, and evening, everyone. So glad that you are here hanging out with us, Teresa. And if you're out there on any of the social media platforms, make sure you just hop in and say hello. We should be streaming on on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, of course, on YouTube. And then, of course, we are also streaming on X. I almost said Twitter, but I guess I got to get used to calling the new name. Now, the one place that we're not streaming on right now is on Instagram. So if you're out there, you know anybody who's on Instagram and they've been waiting for our stream, go ahead and send them a link. Send them a link here to YouTube or any of the other platforms, and so they can get over here. Instagram has done, we've had some interesting ways on getting to Instagram, so still working on that. Hey, and I see Jeff out there. Hey, Jeff. Hello, man. How are you? Glad that you are coming through and hanging out with us. All right. So let's hop to it, y'all. Let's hop to it. We've been talking about our HEAT model, and the HEAT model is a model that talks about triggers, and these triggers are things that push us in one direction or the other as we are trying to make healthy choices as it relates to our food. Well, why is food so important? It's important because as we have been working on improving our health and putting our diabetes in remission, you'll remember we started out by defining what our why. Why do we want to be healthy? What are the things that are pushing us in the direction of making decisions to be healthy? All right, so you were supposed to come up with that. The tool that we introduced, a very powerful tool, is the tool of fasting. And we've been going through the fasting over the last couple of months. If you have not done so, go ahead and watch some of those shows. We'll be actually starting our fast tomorrow evening as we go through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, usually starting on Tuesday night. But we'll be coming in and doing some check-ins. But one of the most powerful tools that we've been using is this tool of fasting. And tonight, as we get to the end of the show, we'll be also showing some of our monitors so that you can actually see what those numbers are right? I've got my monitors over here. Of course, you see my blood sugar there on the screen, and we'll be kind of going through those as we get throughout this evening. But we've been talking about fasting. We talked about medications that you should probably get off of, medications you should get on. We talked about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, one of the tools, one of the additional tools that we've been working on. And as we worked through the HEAT model, we talked about habits, we talked about emotions, we talked about access last week, and the final component of the HEAT model is this idea of taste. And much as we talked about of our emotions, much of the things that we do in life, right, are driven by emotions. They're driven by the way we feel. They're driven by those ideas that we have as we interact with data that's coming to us. Remember, our body, our minds, our eyes, our ears, our sensations, we have over 4,000 signals that are coming to us at any one time. And our bodies can't take those all in. And so it assimilates those, it summarizes those, and it gives us an interpretation of what those signals are based on our history, based on our experiences, and based on how we're feeling at the time. And then those emotions then drive our behavior. Similarly, food is our preferences, our taste is influenced by those very same things. You heard me telling the story about my dad when I was growing up and how he cooked. In fact, he makes this dish, y'all. I'm going to have to come over here so I could just say this. And my wife is going to kill me for saying this, but that's okay. My dad makes this dish that my wife loves. In fact, the very first time I think I shouldn't say I think, the very first time that we went to visit them in New York, my dad cooked this dish and she loved it. And I don't want to say that that's why she married me, but I'm starting to wonder. But y'all, he was an amazing cook. And as I get into the kitchen even now, like if I go into the kitchen right now, I'll cook something and I'll taste it. And there are times where I cook things and I'll just put it in the refrigerator and it'll just be there because it just didn't taste right. And you know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for that taste. I'm looking for that blend of flavors that my dad had, the things, the way he put things together, right? So how do we navigate this complex milieu, if you will, so that we can get health benefits? How can we look at food? How can we deal with food in a way that it pushes us and helps us move in the direction of health? Because our taste buds and the things that we like dictate how and what we are going to eat. And the eating that we have, the eating that we do, dictates the choices that we make, and the choices that we make dictates the result that we have. There's this model that my wife is a obesity coach, or weight management coach, I guess I should say that. And there's this model that she uses in her coaching, and it's called the model. And the model says that the things that happen to us have no meaning until we give them a meaning. And the things that happen to us, it's just an event. And it is our interpretation of that event that then pushes us to feel a certain way. And the feelings that we have drive our behaviors, and the behaviors drive our outcome. And so as we are looking at food and our taste, the taste is driving the choices that we make. And those choices that we make in terms of what we eat are the things that then drive what the outcome is for our food and for our health. Make sense? All right. So let's take a look at where we're heading. So first of all, we want to talk about some basic tastes. And you guys know all of these, right? So sweet, salty, sour, bitter. And the one that you may not recognize is this one that's called umami. And umami is a relatively, I don't want to say it's a new one, but it's one that's been there that sometimes we weren't really sure. Is it a real thing, or is it something that just somebody made up? So finally they said, yeah, it is a real thing. And so we're going to talk about all of these: sweet, salty, sour, and then of course umami. And let's hop over to sweet. So sweet. This is often associated with sugars, right? It's a taste that signals energy. From the very first time that we sip our mom's milk, it's the taste that we're biologically programmed to seek. So it's the thing that we want. When the baby, and as a matter of fact, in a baby, the baby's smell is so strong that when mom walks into the room, the baby can smell the milk. And we believe that it is the sweet, it is the sugar in the milk that the baby is actually smelling, and the baby reaches out for that. Right? It's the when we talk about babies who are rooting, right? So mom has the baby, and the baby will start rooting to find that smell, right? Because they're looking for that flavor, they're looking for that sweet. And sweet foods can be a source of immediate energy. You know this, right? If you've ever felt lightheaded or dizzy or faint, if you've ever had low blood sugars, when you take something in that is full of sugar, that's sweet, immediately you feel better. In fact, when you are fasting, right, if you feel lightheaded, or even if you're not fasting, if you go somewhere and you're not feeling well, what's the first thing that people ask you? Hey, did you eat breakfast? Did you eat lunch? Right? Because they're associating the sweetness, they're associating that carbohydrate, they're associating that sugar with energy. In today's world, with all the processed foods, balancing our love for sweetness and healthful choices is more important than ever, right? Because it is usually the sweet that drives us. Now, here's an interesting thing about sweetness. And I had a conversation just today with someone in the office, and I was explaining to them the difference between fasting and cutting back on calories. Because people say, hey, isn't fasting just another way of cutting back on calories? And the simple answer is yes, it is a way of cutting back on calories. But there is a cheat code in there, y'all. And the cheat code has to do with sweetness. It has to do with sugar. When you are cutting back on calories, you're still in the process of putting things in your mouth, putting things in your body. You're still getting those carbohydrates. And when carbohydrates go up, when sugars go up, then your body has to produce insulin to combat the carbohydrates that have just gone up. That insulin drives increase in weight because it is a storage hormone, and it also drives your cravings. So during the process of cutting back on calories, you still have those fluctuations in blood sugars, and you still have those cravings. When we're fasting, we're not putting anything in. So there is not the spike in blood sugar or carbohydrates. There's not the spike in insulin to combat the carbohydrates. And so we're not then putting on weight, and we are not having those cravings. So that's one of the benefits of the fasting. But this all has to do with sweetness. The next one, of course, is salty. And man, I love salty. Now, I love sweetness, right? Because those are the things that give me energy. I'm going to use that. But salty, man, there's just something about eating a salty chip or a pretzel, or when I was growing up in New York, we had those giant pretzels, with the big pieces of salt on them, and you'd put some mustard on there, and oh my goodness, when we went to Coney Island or went downtown Brooklyn, yeah, sorry guys, I didn't mean to trigger anybody. So salt is governed by the presence of minerals like sodium. One of the things that we sometimes will say to people is, if we're trying to cut back on sodium, we'll say, hey, use one of those other sweeteners, salt seasoners, and they will replace sodium with sometimes potassium, right? So that's a whole nother conversation to have. It's essential for maintaining our body's fluid balance, which is why when we're fasting, we say, hey, make sure that you are checking and taking care of your electrolytes, right? It's a taste that can enhance the presence of flavors. Have you ever had some food that you've eaten and the food is supposed to be good, right? You smell it. The smells are there and the texture is there, and you eat it. You put a piece in your mouth and it just doesn't have enough salt. I've had that before, right? So the saltiness enhances the flavor, right? So the sweet that we talked about is energy. The saltiness enhances the flavor. But in excess, it can cause other health problems, things like high blood pressure. It can also cause fluid retention, right? Because like we said, it helps fluid balance. So if we have too much, then we start having fluid retention. That's why a lot of people will have swelling in their legs. They'll have swelling in their back. And the doctor will say, hey, I want you to cut back on the salt, right? And so, of course, learning to appreciate the subtleties of salt without overindulgence is a key in achieving a balanced diet. Now, sour. Now, this one, I'm going to say, I'm not really a sour person. There's certain things that I like that, are sour. I don't like the acidity that it comes from it, right? But that's what sour gives you. When you taste something that's sour, is the acidity that is in it that is kind of things like citrus or fermented foods. It's nature's way of saying, hey, there's some vitamin C, right? And the organic acids in it. Now, as we're going through this, right, I want you to be thinking about what these different flavors are, because one of the things that we're going to need to learn is we're going to need to learn how to combine these flavors so that we can have food that's healthy but still tastes good. Right? Food that's healthy but still tastes good. Right? So sour is nature's way of saying, hey, there are some organic acids in here. There's some vitamin C in here, right? And it can invigorate the palate. So when we taste something that's sour, the fluids in our mouth begin to flow, right? And it stimulates the appetite. And so sour flavors can lead to an appreciation of a wider variety of foods. Because if we just stick with salty and sweet, right, those are there. But when we add when we add the sour in there, man, that just really kicks it up another notch, right? Okay, and then let's see, where am I? Yep, here we are. So that's our sour. And then bitter. Now, bitter traditionally in our history is something that is designated as protecting us from toxins. So toxins in the wild. So as part of Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts, or if you're an outdoors person, or if you're in Pathfinders or in any of those kind of clubs, one of the things they teach you when they're teaching you with plants is they teach you how to know and recognize plants. Right, and the kind of general rule is if it's bitter, then that's not a good thing, right? But it can have this kind of complex relationship to our diet. It is the place. It highlights these phytonutrients that we sometimes will see, and there are some foods that even though we eat them, they still retain kind of that almost bitter taste. Things like leafy greens, right? Certain teas will have it. I grew up eating, as you guys may know, that I was born in South America, and I grew up eating something called carayla, and carayla is what everybody now knows as bitter melon, right? And bitter melon, it is just like it says, guys. It is bitter, and we used to cook it, and they cook it kind of like you would cook zucchini or squash, and so that it was bitter, and It's one of the things that, although I grew up eating it, I don't know. I think if certain people cook it, I still can eat it. But like when I cook it, I have not mastered yet the art of getting the bitter out of it, right? So learning to enjoy bitter taste can once again open up the world, because we've got the sweet, we've got the salt, we've added the sour in there, and now we've got that just hint of bitterness. Oh man. It can also help with digestion and with detoxification. And then umami. So umami is that savory taste, right? This is what I look for when I'm cooking. This is what I want right here, right? So it usually signals the presence of amino acids, and those are the building blocks for proteins. And it's found in meats, cheese, mushrooms, fermented products. So that's that rich flavor that you get. It's kind of like when you do that bouillon, or when you're making that roux and you drop the stuff in there and you start to season it up and it's boiling down. You got the sausage. Well, it hasn't boiled yet. You got the sausages that you put in there and you kind of fry them up. And it's the reason that we deglaze pans, right? We get that flavor, right? So it adds depth. It adds satisfaction to dishes. It's the taste that makes food deeply gratifying. It's that richness. It's why you go to that expensive restaurant, right? Because they have that rich sauce that they drizzle just so over your favorite piece of meat or your favorite vegetable, right? That's the reason. That it's the umami that sometimes will do that for us. Okay? So how are our taste preferences formed? Well, our taste preferences are formed by culture and environment, during our adolescence and our adulthood, and through our experiences and our openness to do and try different things. So let's talk about that. So culture and environment. So we eat the way we were brought up, most of us, unless there was some thing that happened during that process that pushed us in one direction or the other. Like if something happened where you said, man, I'm never eating like my family. And some people are there, right? There are some people who lost loved ones and they attributed the loss of that loved one, their death, to the way that they ate. And so now that they've grown up, right? I know people, they say, hey, I'm not ever eating like that. So they've made a change. Or there are some people who are brought up in a way where they were very restricted, right? They couldn't eat certain things. And so those people, on the other hand, they go to the other extreme and say, man, my family didn't ever let me eat cakes and cookies and candies and ice cream. And so that's exactly what I'm going to eat. All right. So there are those extremes. And there are those places that people go, and I shouldn't say extreme, it's the place people go based on, once again, their experience and their culture and their environment. But for the most part, most of us began our adulthood, and for a lot of our current adulthood, we eat the way we eat. We season the way our family seasons. We saute the way they saute. As a matter of fact, there's this funny story. I think my pastor may have told it, or I heard it somewhere. So there's this. We heard it. It was in a marriage conference that my wife and I went to. So there's this wife, right? So she got married. Her and her husband got married, and she's a young wife, and she has this pan that she makes. I don't know what it was, right? Some dish in, and somehow the pan got destroyed, and so she stopped making the dish. And her husband keeps asking, he said, "Hey, honey, I love that thing you used to make. Can you make that?" She's like, I can't because there's this particular way you make it in this dish. And so anyway, her mom comes to visit, right? And I think her mom had given her the dish. And her mom, she's talking to her mom, and she says, "Hey, Mom, I don't know, I can't make this dish anymore." Maybe the mom asked her to make it. She said, "I can't make it anymore." She said, "Why?" She said, "Because the dish that you gave me that made it, right, is gone, is destroyed, so I can't make it anymore." And the mother said, "The only reason I made it in that dish was because that's all we had." Notice, that's all they had. When mom and dad were coming along, this is what they had to make that particular dessert. I think it was a cake or something, right? But this young lady had seen her mom make it each time in this exact same container or dish or whatever. And so mom gave it to her. So she brought into her marriage that this was the way to make it. But it was just something that had developed over a course of time. And it wasn't anything particular to it. It was just, that's what mom made. That's what mom had. And so our tastes are in a large part defined by and influenced by our culture. So I am South American / Caribbean in my history. And so the things that I like, the taste that I like are from that culture. You may be from an Italian culture. You may be from somewhere in Europe, somewhere in Africa, one of the African countries. You may be from a Latin American country, right? So all of those cultures have a particular way of eating. You may be from the South. You may be from the Northeast. You may be from out west, from the Northwest, from mid-America. And there's a certain way that the people that you were around ate. And some of it, listen to this, y'all, some of it, they ate the way they ate because the things that were available when they were there are the things that they had to use. For example, last month was Black History Month, and I did a couple of talks on slave food. So in a large part, the African American Southern food, Southern cooking, has to do with the foods that were available and that had to be used. And so that comes down as a history. I can't tell you the number of people that I see in the office, and we're talking to them about changing diets and altering. And so I remember this guy is probably about 70-something year old guy I saw in the hospital for the first time. So he was in for something else, and I saw him for diabetes because I think he was just diagnosed with diabetes. And so I went in. I was fresh out of school at the time, fresh out of fellowship. And so I'm talking to this guy about food and going through my thing like we do, as us physicians do. And he said to me, he's like, "Doc, this is the way that my wife cooked or cooks." He said, "My mama taught my wife how to cook like this. My grandmama taught my mama how to cook, and my great-grandma taught my grandmother how to cook." He said, "I'm 76 years old, and this is how I eat." So our culture influences it. As we move into our own lives, right? As we move into our own lives, we begin developing different tastes. Like my son now is growing, right? So he's an adolescent. And he's developing a taste for foods that are slightly different from the family. So in addition to the cultural things that he has picked up, the cultural things that we do, he now has picked up and is picking up things that he likes, certain foods that he likes. When he's with his friends, they eat a certain way. And so there are things that he will now pick up from them that are distinct from the way my wife and I cook and the way we cook in our home. So he's going to add those there. As he goes into his own life, as he gets his own family, there are going to be things that are going to be available for the part of the country that he goes to. And some of you know this, right? You left where you were and you went to a different part of the country, and that's, whatever was there, you ate, right? So you went to the restaurants, you went with friends, you went to church, and those are the things that you guys ate. And then our experiences and our openness to try new things. Experiences and openness to try new things. One of the things that I am excited about in terms of this young man that's growing up in my house is all of the things that he has open to him, all of the experiences, right? And I'm excited to see the new things that he's going to try, the behaviors he's going to develop. And all of us, as we came along, we picked up some things from home. As we got into our adolescence and adulthood, we amalgamated some of those with other things that we saw. And then our experiences opened us up. And if we were open, we learned new things. And we're not just talking about food, right? We learned new skills and new behaviors and new ways of doing things. And we thought, oh, there was only one way of doing something. But now we found out, oh, no, there's something else. So that's how our taste preferences happen. And it is an amazing thing to see that develop and know how that happens. Well, so what is the role of taste in our food choices? Well, our taste is driven by the choices and nutritional quality. Our taste is driven by choices and nutritional quality. So there are some of us who make specific choices to eat specific things because we know that's nutritious for us. It's kind of like one of my favorite cartoons when I was growing up was Popeye the Sailor. You remember it? I am that I am, and that's all that I am. So Popeye carried in his pocket, and I don't know how Popeye had that big can of spinach in his pocket, but anyway, he carried it. And whenever he got weak, or remember Brutus would get at him, or somebody would capture him, or he needed to do something, Popeye would pop out that can of spinach and he'd swallow it. And all of a sudden, those little tiny arms, the muscles would pop up, and sometimes you see like a cannon in it, or you see like a steamship, a tanker, or I don't know, or a tank, right? Or an aircraft carrier, or anyway, one of those boats. So those are things that sometimes we make choices. But remember, those things, if you take some spinach and you give it to a child, guess what? They're not eating it. Why? Because they have not made the connection between nutrition, and also they may not have, they don't like the taste because it has that slightly bitter taste. Okay. So there are lots of health implications for the choices that we make in terms of our food. And so what we want to do is we want to rebalance our taste for optimal health. And there are a lot of things that we can incorporate. One of them that we've talked about in another context is this idea of mindful eating. And mindful eating is the process of being present with the food that you're eating. Being here, understanding the purpose of the food. We did a show where we talked about the role of food in terms of nutrition. If you've not done that, go back and watch that. It is in our Mastering Diabetes. It's in our Mastering Diabetes playlist that's out there. Okay, so the role of mindful eating. So what is the role of food, and how am I enjoying this food? Sometimes the reason we don't enjoy food is because we are watching TV, we're playing a game, we're on our cell phone, we're watching a movie, we're not present. And so the food goes down and we're done and we're not satisfied because we never really tasted it, right? It just made it through. And then we've got to cultivate a taste for health. There is nothing stronger than a choice that I am going to be healthy. And I'm going to put a pin there, y'all, because I want to say something about me. So for a long time, in my experience, I did not make a choice for various reasons to be healthy. I was learning about health. I was learning to be a physician. I was learning all the things. I would be up, and you guys may or may not know the training schedule when we were coming through. I think things are a little different now, a little bit more humane. But I remember going in because we had to be there to be on call, and so call started at 7:00. Well, in order for me, right, because of some of my challenges, in order for me to be able to be ready to present my patients at 7:00, sometimes I would show up at 3:30, 4:00 in the morning, so I can go read the charts, read the labs, get those labs together, make my presentation, and be ready to present those patients to either the senior or to the attending if I was the senior, or sometimes, my interns, those that were below me, they would come in and they would ask me questions of the patient. So I had to know about the patients. So I'd go in early. So coming in at 4:00, and then you're on call all night, right? So 7 to 7 in the morning is when you're on call. And then you had that entire day that you had to work. and then maybe go to clinic in the afternoon. So we're there 24, 36 hours or more, right? And that's on a every other day basis. And then not to talk about clinics and anyway. So as you become a senior, so my history in medical school and residency, it was very traumatic, right? I guess that's the only word I could use. And so I developed very bad habits, eating habits, coping or lack of coping skill habits, right? And so as I got into my later life, those skill or those habits continued to follow me. Yeah. And many of us are right there right now. Right? Many of us are right there right now. So there's a lot that has to happen for us to begin retraining, right? We got to cultivate that taste, and we got to begin retraining our palates so that it does, or it pushes us in the direction of where we want to be, right? So the role of taste, right? And so what are some common challenges that people will face as they attempt to change their taste? What are some common challenges? Number one, preference for high fat, high sugar foods. That is what our society has built into us. So aside from the things that have developed as part of our history, part of our childhood, part of our own development, advertising, the design of foods. As a matter of fact, I was watching a show today, and the chef was talking about these very tastes, right? The sweet and the salty and the sour and the bitter and the umami. And he was talking about how to put it together so that when you sit down, you just want to have more of that food. Notice, it's not healthy that we want to have more of the healthy food. We just want to have more, right? And there's this idea of the bliss point that I've talked about before, where there's the perfect amount of fat, the perfect amount of sugar, and perfect amount of salt. And that's what advertising does. So that when you eat that, you're like, this is so good. So we have a built-in preference for high fat, high sugary foods. The other challenge that people will have is that they are unfamiliar. They're unfamiliar with healthy foods, right? They've never learned how to cook it. They've never learned what some of those different things are. We all pretty much eat about 15 to 20 different things, and that's it. We stick within that group of foods that we eat all the time. So they've never expanded beyond that, and so they're unfamiliar with maybe some healthy foods. They think that healthy foods have less flavor. In fact, one of our community members in our community meetup was asking me, there's this dish that she likes and she wants to make, and she was like, hey, how do I make this so it's healthy? Right? So it tastes good. And so we gave a couple of suggestions, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we do that. But yeah, most of the time when we say, oh, I'm eating such and such, the people who are not in our circle will say, how does that taste? Right? In fact, this afternoon, let me tell on myself, I was in the office, and I was explaining to one of our pharmaceutical reps the spikes that we have in blood sugars as a result of something like a milkshake. And as I'm talking about this milkshake, y'all, in my brain says, you need to get a milkshake. And so we started talking about healthy milkshakes, and so they were describing the milkshake, and right? Right now I'm talking to you about food, right? And me, the endocrinologist, the guy who's sitting there talking about food, I said, man, that must taste nasty. Right? Because we think if it's healthy, it's less flavorful. Another challenge is that it is time consuming, y'all. Time and convenience. I don't have time to do that and prepare for that. And then there are some social and cultural influences. We eat the way the people around us eat. That's one of the reasons that quote unquote diets don't work. Because if you're on a particular diet and your family is not on the diet, now you've got to cook two separate types of foods. Or if you go somewhere and the people that you're associating with are not doing the thing you're doing, then you got to make a choice. And a lot of times we make the choice to be in community rather than be different. That's a good one. Okay, hold on. Let me pop over here. Hear what I said. We make the choice to be in community rather than be different, because we don't want to be different. We don't want the community to ostracize us. Right? So we don't do that. So how then do we begin introducing new foods? How do we begin introducing new foods? Number one, we want to do so slowly and start small. You can start by incorporating small amounts of new foods into the dishes you already like. Right? So begin putting those things in there. So you can add some kale to a smoothie, or mixing some arugula, some quinoa into your rice, arugula into your salad. Right? So start small. Don't all of a sudden go home and like a lot of people will do, they'll throw everything out and say, okay, I'm going to be healthy. Well, guess what? That's not going to work. Number two, you want to mix and match. So combine new flavors with textures that are familiar to you, things that you like. Right? So put something that's bitter with something that's sweet, or something that's something that is citrus with something that's sweet, or something that's salty, right? So play around with them. So create new mixes and matches. It's the only way that you're going to be able to be successful. Right? Because once again, we all we all will eat around the same number of things if we're not careful, if we don't catch ourselves. So experiment with cooking methods, right? Instead of frying something, steam it. Instead of steaming it, it gives a different dimension, right? So grill it, saute it. Don't bake it, don't bread it, just do something different. And this can reveal things that you may like. A lot of us don't like things because we've never tried it. I remember when my son was growing, right? We would put things on his plate. He's like, oh, I don't like that. I said, how do you know? You haven't tried it yet. And so we put things on his foot and we make him eat, or we made him eat different things. Hey, you got to try some of that. Okay, after you try it, then you can say, okay, I don't like it. But you can't say I don't like it if you don't try it. Approach new foods with curiosity. Engage your curiosity. Make this a fun process, y'all. In the office today, I was telling someone who was there, we were trying to figure out, he said, well, what can I eat? What's going to raise my blood sugar? And I said, this is the fun part of what we do. Right? For my patients, this is the fun part of what we do. In order for me to know what's going to raise my blood sugar, I got to try it. In order to know what I like, I've got to try it. I may not like it and say, I'm not never going to that again, but you can't say that unless you've tried it. Engage in it. Look at this as an adventure. Right? A lot of people like to travel, and some people say, oh, I'm not going to that place because it can be whatever. But this person said, no, I'm going to that place because I want to know what it's like. And then be patient and persistent. This is your health. This is your health. You can make choices. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen if you allow it to happen. All right, so start small, mix and match, experiment, engage your curiosity, and then be patient, be patient, be patient. And then here are some flavor enhancers, y'all. Flavor enhancers. Utilize fresh herbs and explore the world of spices. There's salt, there's pepper, there's garlic powder, there's onion powder. And after that, most of us stop. most of us stop in terms of our spices. We know Italian seasoning. We know thyme. We know rosemary. We may know garlic. We may know cilantro. We may know basil. And after that, most of us stop. There are so many spices out there, y'all. There are so many herbs that you can flavor the food with. The better you flavor it, the more the brain says, hey, I like that thing. So we're incorporating new things. And so what are we doing? We'll come to that in a minute. So master the art of roasting. When you roast things, man, there's a flavor that comes out of it that you cannot believe. And some of us, we don't do that. So take some asparagus, take some eggplant, take some zucchini and some squash, and chop them into chunks, right? Get a foil pan or whatever kind of pan, a baking sheet, right? And get some light spray, or you get a little bit of, I'm going to say olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, right? Get some of that and just mix it together, some salt and pepper and other seasonings, and just put them in the oven and broil it. Oh, yeah. Broil it for about, 2-3 minutes. Cover it with foil. Put it back in for 2-3 minutes. And then take the foil off and broil it for another minute. Amazing. Amazing taste. One of the things that I've done, and this is, I don't even know how I got this, right? So I took some portobello mushrooms, right? Those big ones. And I cut them in quarters. And I got a balsamic vinaigrette salad dressing. And I drizzled it over it, mixed it up. Some salt, pepper, some other seasonings. And I put that thing in the oven. And man, when that came out, it was amazing. Have you ever had a portobello mushroom hamburger? Just the portobello mushroom, not even meat, right? Not even beef, not even that, just it, right? That was the meat, was the portobello mushroom. It was amazing. Anyway, sorry, you guys, I'm getting hungry now. Okay, so use citrus and vinegar. Remember I said that when you use citrus, it enhances, it opens up the flavor, opens up your taste buds. It allows you to see and feel and taste other things. Incorporate healthy fats, right? I said extra virgin olive oil. Avocado would be a good one that you could put in there, right? So begin incorporating new things, new fats in there. Because remember, fat, salt, and sugar are the three things that the industry, the food industry, is using to affect you, to convince you to do something. You can use it for yourself. You can use it to help your palate look for other things. And then embrace umami and season smartly. So embrace umami, that is in your foods, right? What types of things can give you that flavor? Well, mushrooms will do that. I just talked about portobello mushrooms. They're amazing, right? For giving you that protein flavor, right? Put it in there. And then season smartly. Don't just put all, I started talking about making a roux earlier, you remember? That's the reason that some foods in some restaurants are so good. They don't just put all the seasoning in there one time, right? They brown the meat and they drain off the oil. And then they brown the vegetables or saute the vegetables. They glaze the pan. Then they put the sauce that they have back in the pan. They put the meat back in, whatever. I'm talking sausage, right? Put the sausage back in there. Then they put the vegetables that they sauteed. Then they put some fresh vegetables and they cover it. They let it simmer for a couple of minutes. And then they put some more seasoning. What are they doing? Is they're building the complexity of the flavors in the food. So that when you taste it, when you eat it, amazing. This does not just have to be done in an unhealthy way. You can do this in a healthy way as well. Right? So all of those things. So what are we ultimately talking about, y'all? Let me back up here. So what are we ultimately talking about? What we're talking about is taste. Right? We're talking about that last component of the heat model. right? Habit, emotions, access, and taste. Of the things that are there, the one that's probably involved in all the others is the taste. Because our brains associate a taste with an emotion. It associates a taste with a particular time, and it associates a taste with our access to certain things. Let me say that again. Of the things that are in the heat model, the one that's probably associated, incorporated with everything else is this idea of taste. Because our habits that we do, think about this. The first time you ate some certain things, it was nasty. You didn't like it because your palate wasn't used to it. And you sat down, for example, with the family, and every time we sat down with the family ate that thing. And you tried it again and again and again and again. And after a while, right, you can be across town, around the country, across the globe. If somebody makes that thing for you and you eat it, you associate that taste with the fact that your family used to sit down on Tuesdays and eat it. Right? One of the reasons I get hot dogs and pizza and Chinese food when I go to New York is because I associate the taste with the emotion of being with my dad and my family. Mm-hmm. Right? The memory comes back. The memory begins flooding me, even though I'm talking to you right now. I remember the first time that he took me to Coney Island. Right? The memory. Those emotions are stirred up. And then our access. Right? Our access, even if something is on the table, y'all, if we don't like how it tastes, we're not going to eat it. Right? So taste is involved. So the things that push us in a particular direction, habits, emotions, access, and taste. And our goal here is to begin looking at our reason for the things that we're eating. What does that taste mean to us? What does it remind us of? What has caused it? Is it just programming from the industry? Is it just the fact that they found just the right combination of those fat, carbs, and fat, sugar, and salt? And once you got it, you were addicted. So how do we reprogram? We begin first by understanding the reason for the things that we eat. All right. Okay, let's see who's out there. I know I saw a couple of people come in, so let's hop over and let's say hello to everybody. Jeff, I think we said hello to you. Hey, Jeff, thank you for coming through. Key Washington. Hey, good evening, she says. Glad that you are here, Key. Jennifer says, howdy, Teresa, Key, Jeff. Hello, Dr. Woods. Glad that you're here. Frozen. Okay, was I frozen? Hopefully I'm not frozen. Okay. Jennifer said, okay, I'm back. Kimberly says, hello all. Teresa, yay. Popeye, LOL. And I said I would never eat spinach. Yep. I am that I am. So, can anybody really tell me, though? Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm going to ask it. Can anybody tell me what Popeye saw in Olive, though? She was always getting in trouble. And Brutus was always beating Popeye up for olive oil. I don't know. But anyway, he liked her. Jennifer said, howdy. Jennifer says, okay, now I'm hungry. I know. I talked about a lot of things, a lot of food tonight. I know. It's taste. They say, LOL, me too. I ate over 2 hours ago. Jeff says turmeric, salt, pepper, ginger, cinnamon, cumin, collagen, creatine, electrolytes, all dumped into my sugar-free protein shake after I lifted weights. It doesn't taste very good, but I get it down. I love it. So here's a question, right? So most babies, right? As I said before, babies are looking for sugar. When they're born, they're looking for sugar in the milk. It symbolizes energy, right? That's what sweet symbolizes to us. And there are certain things that when you give baby, like when you give baby food, there are certain things that they don't really like. Like I know when my son was young, he would eat the peaches and the plum, or not plum, peaches, the little baby food. I think, what else? Peas he would eat, but green beans. As a matter of fact, have you ever smelled the green beans baby food? I didn't want to eat it. I didn't want to taste it. So all the things that we, though, acquire since then are based on repetition. That's why they say, sometimes I shouldn't say sometimes, when I was seeing children, parents would ask me, how do I get Johnny to like this? How do I get Johnny to eat more of that? How do I get Johnny to, right? I said, just keep putting it on the plate and keep having him taste it or having her taste it. Right? Teresa said, I don't know, but she was skinny to me. Yeah. So you're with me there, Teresa. Okay. All right. So let's hop over and let's take a look at some of my numbers. I know you guys have been waiting to see that. So here's my blood sugar, and that's been, if you look at that, we've kind of been straddling right around 100 all day. That's my Libre. And let's see, and this is, it won't do. And this is my Dexcom, so about 100. And I ended my fast, or broke my fast on Friday evening, if you guys remember. And one of the things that I do want to do is we're going to come over and show you here in a minute what those blood sugars did following the fast. But let's hop over and let's show what my monitors are saying. So I've got my Contour, and I've got my Keto Mojo. And we'll see if we can get a good drop of blood. I'm going to use a different finger so we can get a good sample. So that's the Keto Mojo, and here is, okay, so 104. Okay, so that's still in keeping with what we expect. And 97. Okay, awesome. Now let's see what our ketones are. What do you think the ketones are going to be? Somebody take a guess. So I haven't fasted since Friday evening. I'm going to say maybe 0.3. Oh, wow, 0.8. So that means that I have not been eating a whole lot of carbs. Right? So I'm still kind of eating a ketogenic, if you will, ketogenic diet. And let's see. I've got to hop over here. My, as you guys know, whenever I am on and I log into the Dexcom, it logs me out because it times out. So I've got to log back in over there. Hold on a second, guys and gals. Let's see. But it's been a pretty good few days, right? Since we ended the fast. So if you're out there right now and you have been fasting, go ahead and put in the chat how many hours are you currently fasting? All right, remember, this is a progress. We're talking about progress, not perfection. So even if you've been fasting 2 hours, I want you to put that in the chat because I want to know where you are. All right, give me a second. Let me type this in. Okay, so I think I typed that in wrong. All right, here we are. All right, so how many hours have you fasting? So Teresa says, Doc, I'm so proud of you. You've done awesome. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. All right, let's hop over and let's take a look over here at our numbers. Okay, so average blood sugar, as you see there, that big number is 113, and this is for the last 2 weeks. So we typically in the office will do 14 days, a 14-day average. And the reason I do that is that tends to give me a good idea of what people are. Sometimes people change up, right? They start, paying attention to blood sugars before they come to see me 2 weeks in 2 weeks. But yeah, it's a good indicator. So we'll keep that. All right. And then let's see. So I'm in range 95% of the time, and you'll see down here the range is 70 to 180. And this thing says that if I continue with these blood sugars, that my glucose management indicator would be 6.0. And that is a surrogate, if you will, an estimate of what the system thinks that my A1C would be. If you remember a couple weeks ago, Jeff asked about what my A1C was, and we showed you that was 6.6. I thought my visit with my doctor was coming up last week, but it's actually coming up next week or 2 weeks from now. So I'm going to get some more blood work, Jeff. So we'll have three sets of blood work in a row, so you guys can see when I do that show. So you want to keep an eye on that, because we're going to do a show where you actually see my numbers. You'll see, and I'll give you an idea of what some of the things are you need to be looking at as your doctor is looking at your numbers. Okay, so let me do a full screen for this one, because I want to go back and let's see, where are we? So this is Friday. So Friday, we ended the fast right here with a blood sugar of 72. And we got through the rest of the evening, and you'll see there 79, 79, 80, 100. And right here, guys, let's see, was that where it died? Yeah. So my Dexcom went out. And so for the rest of that day, I don't have data. I'll show you what the Libre shows here in a minute. But when I finally put it back on, and in the afternoon, so it was 120, 120s, 120s, 130s, 136, 120s, and then into Saturday, got up to about 120, 120. Oh, here's a 134, 109. And so we were basically just traveling in the 100s, right? So low to mid 100s. And then we started coming down. And I think, so Teresa and Jennifer, this is where I stopped eating nuts right here. Once I saw these numbers right here, I was like, okay, the nuts have to go. And so look at that, y'all. So here's an interesting thing for everybody. When we talk about foods, a lot of people think that you have to like gorge on, I don't know, cookies, candies, and cakes in order for your body to respond by increasing blood sugar. And this is cashews and almonds right there, right? So all of these numbers that you're seeing, cashews and almonds. Now, granted, it was a lot of cashews and almonds, right? So don't judge me, okay? And then coming into the next day, this is now Sunday. Is that Sunday or is that? No, that's today. So coming into today, right, there we are. We get that little spike that I normally get in the morning. And I've kind of said, guys, I think this is a combination of the dawn phenomena and me brushing my teeth right there. Right, that spike that I get in the morning. Because remember, there's sugar in the toothpaste. And then continuing on, so I've been in the hundreds, and that's lunch. And I had a chicken finger salad for lunch, and then coming into the evening. And so now my Libre is 91 and my Dexcom is 108. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. So I see some people putting in some numbers. So Teresa says, okay, she's done a 16 to 18 hours. Good. Yes. So remember, we are working towards that 24, but we start wherever we are. And then, so very good, Teresa. And then Jennifer says, currently finishing up supper while listening, about half hour fast right now. Okay. Yeah. Love it. That is so incredible, y'all. I'm going to say this to you, the community here, that I'm very proud of you all in all the things that you're doing. Proud of the decision that you've made to take charge of your health and take charge of your life. Avoid complications and go to the next level. You know, that's what we say. That's what we say all the time. And so I'm very excited for where you are. And so I want to applaud you, and I want to give you a wonderful, I just want to give you your accolades. Sometimes we don't do that. So the choices that you've made and the places that you find yourself, I love where you are. Okay. All right. So this is a great place for us to do our thought of the day. So let's do that right now. And our thought of the day is this: positive thoughts lead to a positive life. Positive thoughts lead to a positive life. I can't tell you the number of things that I would say to myself that were negative. I can't begin to explain to you the number of ways that we talk to ourselves that we would never, ever talk to anybody else, because we would think that it would be so demoralizing and so depressing. But yet we talk to ourselves that way all the time. Oh man, this is just how you are. You knew that wasn't going to work. You're no good at that. I don't know why we're even trying. This is just like we did before. All of those thoughts, while sometimes seeming, we kind of couch it in, I'm just being a realist, they're negative thoughts. And those negative thoughts have an impact on our health and has an impact on our minds. Here's an interesting thing about our bodies and our minds. Your brain never wants to be wrong. Your mind does not want to be wrong. So it will create situations and create a belief in you so that what you tell it is true. So if you're continually saying, I'm no good, I can't do that, I can't be healthy, I can't control my blood sugar, then guess what? The body and the brain will create a situation in you where you're true to what you're saying. What does that mean? That means if you keep saying, I can't control my blood sugar, the brain will say, well, yeah, we know that's not true. I mean, we know that's true. And so it makes you eat so that your blood sugars aren't controlled. We can't ever lose weight. We can't ever do that. Well, the brain is going to say, okay, sure. Let's make that true, and let's do everything we can to sabotage the weight loss. I can't fast. Well, if you say you can't fast, the brain says, I don't want to be wrong about that, so let's make sure she can't fast. So let's put all the obstacles in place so that fasting never happens. So our brain will create an environment, will create behaviors in us to make what we tell it come true. And so, if that is what happens on the negative side, can you imagine the power and the reach and the heights that we can go if we begin feeding positive thoughts into our brain and our minds? I can do that. I am a good person. I am fasting. I fast once a week. My blood sugars are going to be amazing. I am going to reverse my diabetes. I am going to lose weight. I'm going to get good rest. I'm going to build community. I'm going to connect with other people. When you begin doing that, the brain now has to find a way to make that happen. And in order to do that, it allows you to begin creating and implementing behaviors and thoughts that push you in the direction of being successful. So your goal is to begin feeding your brain, begin feeding those positive thoughts so that your positive thoughts can lead you to a positive life. And that's our thought for today. All right. You guys know how we do it here. I'm so excited that we were able to spend some time together and that you are having success. If you are out there and this is the first time that you're catching us, the first time that you're seeing this, somebody sent you a link and you're watching, you're like, man, I'm so far behind. You are not far behind. You catch us right where you are. If you're watching this, go ahead and put #replay so I'll know that you are watching this on the replay. All right, join us. We're going to give you our call to action here in just a minute. If you've not already done so, go back and watch the shows. Watch what we've done. If you're currently here, go ahead and make sure that you give us a like. Send this to some other people as we get into our call to action. You know how we do it. Everything that we do is built on our triple E formula for success. Number one, we educate. The shows that we do, the website that we have, the shorts that we do, the blog, all of that is to give in education, right? You cannot change things that you don't have information about. So make sure that you're watching the shows. Make sure that you are coming along with us. Don't just watch it and put it on the shelf, right? So we educate, we empower. The tools that we're using, the tools that we're talking about, right? Like the fasting that we're doing, the heat model that we just finished, the emotional intelligence that we learned a few weeks ago, the coming up with your why. Remember the 5 whys, right? So all those are tools that we're using in the process of getting to where we need to be in putting our diabetes in remission, putting our health where it needs to be so we can avoid complications and go to the next level. And then we encourage, right? We encourage each other with the community. And that brings us to our call to action. So what is our call to action? Number one, join the challenges. They're out there. They're on the show. Watch them and get involved. Even if you think that I'm behind, you can start where you are. We're looking for progress, not perfection. So join the challenges. Make sure you're there. Share your story. Come on the show. Let us know how you're doing. Join the chat. You see, we're kind of talking back and forth here. We are building a community. The community is only as strong and only as powerful and only as helpful as you are when you are here. So come on, share your stories with us. Let us know the challenges that you're doing and let us know the successes so we can give you a hand clap and give you some music. And then invite a friend. You know somebody who can use this information. There are over 430 million people around the world that have diabetes. 38 million here in the United States alone. 88 million in the United States that are over 88 million that have prediabetes. There are people that have polycystic ovarian syndrome, metabolic syndrome, obesity, people who are suffering from high blood pressure, high cholesterol. They've had heart attacks and strokes. They've got cancers. They've got inflammatory processes. And all of those get better with the information that we're sharing. So invite somebody, send them the link, let them know what's happening on the show and what we are doing. All right. So coming up next month, we're going to be having our next community meetup, and kind of want to pay attention to that. As we get to the end of this month, we'll announce that. But we will begin our fast tomorrow night, and we'll be on Wednesday evening to share where we are as we get into this episode of, or this instance of the fast. Right? So make sure that you're out there. Let us know that you're there. If you see us on any of the social media platforms, go ahead and say hello. Drop us a line. It's Dwayne Wood, MD, on all the social platforms. You can find us there. All right. And as you know, guys, I'm always excited that you're here. Always excited that I get a chance to spend some time with you here on the channel and here in this social space. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level, creating the life you've always wanted. And in this year, y'all, new year, new you. We'll see you at the next show. Good night.